Hello again and welcome to Painter's Block. I'm your host Anthony Ryden. Please follow us, like and subscribe. We are found on Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. This will be our video on color shifting nebulas. This is going to be amazing. Now first we're going to start off with our piece, whatever you want, preferably something with a smooth surface. Larger the better to learn from. You can go smaller if you want, but use a black primer, something really black like a Chaos Black. And then I use a number 2 brush for most of the application, and then a number 4 brush for the very, very fine detail, and actually mostly just applying the Chameleon Flakes. And then one of the secret sauces, the sponge. Now this is going to help us not need an airbrush. Airbrushes need that particle effect, so we're going to use the sponge for a stippling effect. Then we're going to grab our titanium white, used in everything. A brilliant shine gloss is going to help us bring out the color again when it dries, and this is going to be our new secret sauce. You're going to love this. You're going to need a big bucket of it. You're never going to want to go without it. Then you're going to need your gray, whatever you want. I use Celestant gray. Then some form of a watered down deep blue. I use contrast Stormcast blue. And then a burgundy. Contrast burgundy is what I used, but you just need a watered down one that has a deep color value. And then a tesseract green, just a watered down, very yellowy green. You need one like that, so I'd recommend tesseract green. A light purple of your choice, just anything on the lighter spectrum. A greedy gold from Army Painter, I recommend that one for my exact gold that I'm going for. The gunmetal you're not going to need, I put that on the chain below, but that's really easy, anyone can do that. Then a color shifter paint from Villejo. I'm going to put the link below, but you can use this with a brush. You're not going to use an airbrush, and you're just going to use a little bit of this. And then an Agrax Earthshade. I'll use this pretty much on most of my metals when I want it to look a little less bright. Then Chameleon Flakes. Now you get like 6 of them, I believe, in the whole box. The box, I believe, is only about 20-ish bucks, 25 bucks. I'll put a link in the description below. It's changed over time, but I believe when I bought it was about 20 bucks. And these are great. Now, at first they're going to look a little crazy. They're big, but and they look hard to work with. They are hard to work with, but once you get the hang of it, you're going to love that stuff. So here, we're going to start with our star pattern. You're going to grab your number 2 brush or whatever brush with enough of a belly. Grab some titanium white that's nice and watered down. Get your brush nice and wet, cover it off, and make sure to beat the brush over the paper towel first and then over your model, because you don't want a really huge splatter. You want to have a little bit of control. And you're just going to do this everywhere, all around the model, left and right, up and down, back and forth, and just get your star pattern and get different variances in how big the dots are by just how hard you flick the brush. We're going to grab our sponge. I use these dental sponges, but you can use any torn up sponge that you can get a little bit of different textures from. And you're just going to grab the, I put the gray on first this time around, and I just wanted to go for more of a pop, so I start with the gray this time. And I'm going to just swirl this around and dab this around in a random fashion. This is going to imitate the nebula's smoky appearance. And then we're just going to grab it again, and this time just reapply over some of those same areas, creating a lighter tone in the same fog. Now wash off your sponge, and we're going to do it again, but this time we're going to grab some of our titanium white. That is a little bit watered down, but it doesn't really matter. We're just going to grab some of that, wipe it off, make sure there's not too much. You don't want to like create a huge smudge, but you want just enough to get over some of those gray areas and create a pop in the nebula. And that is going to create a really nice effect later. Ooh, yeah, I can already see it coming. I'm just gonna grab a little bit more. Just put it right there. Yep. Just, I would recommend going over each spot like twice whenever you want to add a little bit more of a highlight in the middle of each area that you're working on. It adds more depth, and it's really nice. The real fun part. We're going to grab that number 2 brush, and we're going to start with our deep blue, and we're going to start applying everywhere. In this spot, you can just go however you want. You don't have to follow my exact pattern. You can lay this down in any way, shape, or form. Leave a little background, don't leave a little background, cover mostly in purple, cover mostly in blue, your choice. I would suggest mix it all up and leave as many little trails as you can going through each of the different colors and just go with it. Have some fun. This is the art part of it, and you're just going to grab each of those colors, the burgundy, the deep blue, the tesseract green, and the light purple, and you're going to be able to get this same effect. You're just going to swirl it around like watercolors. And then when it dries, which it does, it's going to fade out and become a little bit less bright. You can grab that brilliant gloss and you can just apply this all over again. Now this is what's going to make all those colors that just swirled together and then faded away, and then you felt like all that work just went to poop. Now you're going to be able to bring it all back up, and all those bright colors, those deep colors are going to become richer, and it's going to be really, really nice. Colors, we're just going to grab our Chameleon Flakes, our Brilliant Gloss again. This is going to act as our adhesive, and we're going to grab that number 4 brush. It's just a little tinier now, and I do kind of ruin my brush while I'm doing this, so you'll have to make sure you have a brush you're willing to lose, because it is going to ruin it a bit. But I have a lot of brushes. Hopefully you do too. If you only have one sharp fine tooth brush, do not use it. Now I'm going to grab that gloss, put it on the brush, and I'm going to start applying to the areas I want the glitter to show the most, and I have decided I want it to look like it's really pouring from the outer edges of the pauldron and start fading inwards into the smoky clouds. And the secret to how to use these well and not to make it look like you're just putting glitter on top of a model and that's it, is you need all those colors we blended earlier, and you need to color match the glitter to each color that we created. So I'm just finding each of these little zones that I have a deep dark blue, and just applying some gloss and then applying the dark deep blue glitter. Now finding the green, I'm going to do the same thing. I want it to come in from the edges, so I'm putting the gloss and then I'm grabbing the glitter and I'm just focusing more from the edges and then sliding it downwards. Now when working with these glitter Chameleon Flakes, they do have a pigment, and you can slide them to kind of fade it outwards. I didn't do it with the green as much because I like that pearlescent kind of oystery look, and then that blue I kind of faded more so it really fades into the dark nebula. Now that looks pretty good. I'm gonna think about it more, so always start with little and then go more. That way you don't overdo it. So here I'm just gonna grab my number 2 brush with a big belly, grab that titanium white that's watered down, and create another star effect. Putting this over everything is going to give us more of a layered feel and give that nebula more of that 3-dimension. And then we're on to making the gold grid. This is really important to pick the right color for your outline of your nebula. Since most nebulas are dark, I generally go with a gold. Gold and black really works well together. Just always keep in mind you want your nebula, if it's going to be framed in some form of color that's going to complement it. And gold is great. It shimmers, it's metallic, it goes well with dark colors, and I'm going with the dark color palette for my nebula, so it's going to work nice and well. So using that greedy gold, it applies a nice base, and you're just going to apply this over the whole grid, avoiding all the little thorns, because we're going to color that with a color shifter paint next. And you're just going to apply evenly everywhere. You're probably going to do this about 2 times, probably doing multiple coats just to apply evenly. When you use gold over anything dark, it's not going to lay well at first, so you have to go over it a second time, sometimes a third if you're not using really well thin paint. But just take your time. This part's the part where you want to take it slow. You don't want to hit that nebula that we just worked on and spent all that time. If you do, it's alright. You can use the glitter to cover it up. You can also it's gold and it sparkles, so it kind of works with the nebula a little bit. Yeah, there you go. It's looking pretty good already. You just need to add a little bit more stuff to it, but we're going good. Now here's the Villejo color shifting paint for the airbrush, but I'm going to use a brush. And we're just going to hit all these little spikes because I'm picking the turquoise blue one, and it's going to fade into the nebula that we already have, and it's going to just like poke out of this gold grid that we have, kind of fusing the nebula in with our armor. It's gonna look really nice. So just grab your heat gun if you don't want to wait for it to dry. It does take a while. It's a bit watery once airbrush consistency because it's like milk. So, but otherwise it'll just take a couple minutes to dry. Back over each of these a couple times. Now it is a thinner paint, so most likely you're going to run into a few spots that don't really like to cover. Now one of the good things about starting off with a black primer is that it doesn't have as much of a problem with these type of paints showing through. It kind of blends in. You want that dark nebula look anyways, so we're kind of using this little bit of a problem and turning it into a little bit of a gift. And I think Bob Ross said something about that. I'm not quite sure, but you know, maybe put in the comment below if you think he said something about that, and I'd like to maybe copy him sometime. I like that saying. Anyways, now I did notice I didn't quite like that this is going to be the front over here, and it didn't have enough of a shimmer. So I'm grabbing my more purple type glitter, and I'm just going in with the gloss and applying it over here. And here I'm going to show you how I fade it out. I'm just dragging my brush over the glitter and causing it to fade. Now here is a halo powder. It's actually for nails, and I'll put a link in the description below, but this causes these spikes to have this nice highlight on the tips that sparkles, and it's kind of easy to do. It costs like $6 for the one like little can that you get, but it goes a long way. It does get really messy, so just be careful applying it. Now I do dip it in with the spikes that are at the bottom because it's easier to put it in and then wipe it off without it having it fall onto the rest of my model. But if you manage to get it cleanly on there, it really acts as a nice highlight to those spikes that you don't have to cover because it's a color shifting paint. You don't want to cover it. Now this Retributor Gold from Citadel, I use this one as the highlight. I love Greedy Gold with Retributor Gold as a highlight. It doesn't cause too much of a cartoony highlight feel. It feels more organic, and I would prefer this over any other. So this is my secret sauce for gold. Otherwise, you can probably do any gold that you prefer. Just find some kind of gold rich tone to complement this dark nebula, and you're gonna be good. And just make sure to hit these highlights though, because this is very important. This is a great frame, and it's going to make this pop. Even if it's very subtle, you're gonna want to do it. Yep, just hit every edge as much as you can that's going to catch light. And the ones that don't really catch light, don't touch them too much. You don't want to overdo it. And then I'm just going to touch each of the bolts to give them a bit of a highlight. Just every little detail you can find. Now we're going to go into the AIRBRUSH Earthshade. And I'm going to water this down about 50-50. As you can see, I'm not actually going to have a lot. And I'm going to pinpoint my shadows. I'm just putting it in the creases and little areas that I want to show a little bit more depth and to add a little bit more dimension to my model. So it's basically just going into all of the creases to make it simpler. Easy work, just going in nice and slowly. You don't want to grab too much and make a puddle effect, so you're just grabbing a little bit at a time and brushing it around and slowly glazing it over. This spot is pretty easy to do. It does take a little bit of time, but it's not that hard. Pretty easy. It's looking so nice already. There you have it, our finished final product, and they look amazing. Oh my god, if you like this, please subscribe and leave us a like, hit that notification bell. Oh man, I love it, and I hope you love it too. If you want more lessons like this, or if you like what you've seen, please come back. We're going to be posting videos every other day. Thank you again. I hope we helped you break your painter's block.